you. So much of the debate over Confederate symbolism, not that it ever went away, but was certainly renewed and heightened in the aftermath of the shooting of 9 black worshipers at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, by Dylan Roof here, right? He's got the, this is from his personal website, he's got the Confederate flag. He doesn't seem to have gone to Gold's Gym, but he's sure. He sits through this Bible study and then executes nine worshipers, one of whom was a South Carolina state senator. In the wake of that attack, Bree Newsom, this woman here who you see on the flagpole with the Confederate flag, scaled this flagpole. This is outside the South Carolina State House in Columbia, South Carolina, removed the flag where it had flown on the grounds of the State House, somewhere on the grounds of the State House. It used to be on top with the South Carolina state flag since 1961. Now, that year marked the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Civil War. It was also somewhere between Brown versus Board of Education decision to desegregate schools and the assassination of King, right? So it's also the assertion of this, this Confederate symbol in South Carolina goes up at the, right in the midst of the civil rights movement. So, with the removal of the flag, and in fact the governor of South Carolina and the legislature in the wake of the shooting somehow mustered the political will to officially remove the flag. Newsom was arrested, but ultimately not charged. And the flag did go back up, but came down after a vote in the legislature. After that removal, this was shortly after the shooting, and this was in June of 2015. And Georgia had redesigned its state flag earlier in the century in 2003. So Mississippi stands as the only former Confederate state to fly on State House grounds somewhere some likeness of the Confederate flag. And in the case of Mississippi, it's actually embedded in its state flag. It's not a separate symbol. You probably couldn't hear it when you were coming in, but I was playing a song by one of my favorite songwriters, Steve Earle, who wrote a song called "Mississippi, It's Time" in the wake of the Charleston shooting, calling on the state to change its state flag. And his song riffed on, at the very end of it, it sort of riffs on that old tune Dixie, which was popularized by Elvis Presley. I'm gonna hopefully play. Is that an internet connection to it too? Great. I'm gonna try to play you a video later that you get to see this. Okay. Earl's voice in the song is just one of thousands raised by in the debate over Confederate imagery and symbolism in the wake of the Charleston shooting. And this debate further intensified last August, as many of you will remember, when white nationalists descended on Charlottesville, Virginia, for the so-called Unite the Right rally. And when counter-protesters turned out in far greater numbers, overwhelming the ranks of those assembled to reassert white supremacy, one of these supremacists drove his car into a crowd of demonstrators, killing one woman, Heather Heyer. All of the struggle we want to remember is entangled in this pattern of police killings of unarmed black men and women, one of which just happened a few weeks ago in Sacramento, California. This is not, I'm going to talk a lot about the South today, but this is not a uniquely Southern phenomenon. So given all of this, Americans throughout the country of many different political stripes and racial backgrounds are forced to confront the country's history of race and racism, including the legacies of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, lynching, other forms of racial repression since the country's founding and even deep before it. And the Confederacy, of course, And its long history of symbolism and commemoration is once again in the national spotlight, despite its defeat over 150 years ago. Could we go forward one more time? I'm going to talk about something very personal and familiar to me for a minute. One of the things I really like about being an historian is I get to kind of delve into some of the things that were part of my childhood that, as a child, you don't really think about too much, right? You just kind of are there. This is Confederate relief carving on Stone Mountain, just a few miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Atlanta, graduated high school there, went to graduate school there, and then moved out here. And so I spent a lot of time there. Have any of you ever been to Stone Mountain before? A few of you. Okay, great. All right. So it's the carving itself is 1.57 acres of total surface area. It's hard to kind of grasp that just from the photo, but it's a massive carving. The mountain itself is a mile from the base to the summit, not straight up, but you know, by way of walking. There's the lawn, as you can see here. It rises kind of gently up away from the carving. There's that nice lake there. There's a railroad track that runs along that fence line right there. It's really a pretty impressive place. And every summer, I can't remember if it's every night during the summer, but it's most nights anyway, they do a laser show where at the very back of the lawn they shoot these lasers and do this crazy show on the face of the mountain. And you go, and we used to do this, my family, every summer, at least once every summer it seems. Sometimes we might go more if we had, you know, family from out of town and in visiting. We would go to the laser show. So you show up before dark, and you bring, you know, fried chicken or something. You know, we could go to Mrs. Winter's and get a big thing of fried chicken. And we'd go have a picnic, and the kids would run around. We'd go and put pennies on the railroad track, and the train would come by and smash them. Right? So I spent you know, a good bit of time, and we would hike the mountain other days. Spent a good bit of time at Stone Mountain. It wasn't too far from where I lived. And as a kid, of course, I never really considered what, you know, the meaning of the carving, right? It was just kind of there, right? And it was kind of impressive and things like that. But as you get older, you tend to kind of place these things from your childhood into greater context. So could we go ahead? I have one more. So this is an image from the laser show, right? It's like fireworks, music. You see the American flag. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It seems kind of odd here. And if we could go ahead one more. This is a close-up of the carving. So this is Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, General Robert E. Lee, General Stonewall Jackson, carved into the side of Stone Mountain. A kind of brief rundown or history of the carving here. It was first suggested by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and they were founded in 1894 and became very active in the fundraising efforts and the kind of logistics of organizing the erection of Confederate monuments throughout the South. Local chapters would take this on, and so in Atlanta, the UDC was